Giovanni Russo stood as a symbol of power and precision, a towering figure in Milan's corporate world. As one of the city's most esteemed corporate lawyers, his sharp mind and commanding presence made him a figure others admired and sought to emulate. His marriage to Alizia had been the epitome of perfection, a union that effortlessly blended sophistication with an irresistible allure, captivating everyone within their social circle. Alizia, an art gallery manager with an innate sense of elegance, complemented Giovanni's driven nature with grace and warmth. Together, they seemed the perfect match. However, in recent months, the harmony of their partnership began to deteriorate. Alizia's laughter, once full of sincerity, lost its warmth. Her open and welcoming nature gave way to an increasingly guarded demeanor. Giovanni, whose instincts had been finely honed through years of experience in the courtroom, sensed a change he couldn't ignore. Something was amiss. Alizia had begun to hide things from him. Her late-night phone calls, once innocent, became curt and shrouded in secrecy. The whispered conversations that used to reflect her spirited personality now sounded foreign, out of place. Her excuses about art gallery events were no longer convincing. They felt empty, like hollow justifications. One evening, as she prepared for another event, Giovanni caught a faint scent of an unfamiliar cologne on her scarf. Though the discovery stung, he chose not to confront her directly. Giovanni was a man who prided himself on strategy. Instead, he began observing her with the same meticulous attention to detail he reserved for unraveling corporate scandals. His suspicions solidified after a casual chat with a friend revealed a troubling inconsistency. Alizia had told him she'd been at the gallery, but his friend, who had been there that evening, hadn't seen her. The doubt gnawed at him, but it wasn't until he discovered a particular entry in her planner that his resolve hardened. There, in black and white, was a reservation for two at an exclusive spa on the very night she claimed to be working late. The betrayal was not an accident. Alizia's lies were calculated. Giovanni's hands shook, but his mind stayed sharp. His emotions would not dictate his actions. He needed answers, and he would get them in a way that left no room for ambiguity. He contacted Luca, a private investigator who owed him a favor, to begin a discreet inquiry. As Luca delved into the investigation, Giovanni steeled himself for what was to come, knowing the foundation of his marriage had already begun to crumble. The following week was a torment of quiet agony. Giovanni's days stretched on, each one more unbearable than the last. He maintained a facade of calm, never allowing Alizia to suspect his growing suspicions. He watched her every move, his instincts driving him with the precision of a predator hunting its prey. No hesitation, no weakness. Finally, the long-awaited envelope arrived. It sat on his desk, a small, unremarkable package that carried the weight of his worst fears. Giovanni opened it with slow, deliberate care, his breath shallow but controlled. Inside, the evidence was laid bare, a series of photographs that shattered the image of the life he had built. There she was, Alizia, his wife, laughing intimately with another man. Matteo, younger, carefree, and possessing the kind of casual charm that Giovanni's disciplined life could never allow. The photos were a gut-wrenching betrayal. Stolen kisses, intertwined hands, intimate dinners, and secluded getaways. Each image felt like a blade to his heart, severing the love he had once held for her. The report that accompanied the photos was even worse. Luca had uncovered that this wasn't a brief fling, but a year-long affair. Alizia had been living a double life, cultivating a secret relationship with Matteo while sharing a home and vows with Giovanni. But Giovanni was no stranger to adversity. Betrayal would not break him. He was a strategist, a tactician, and he would not allow his emotions to cloud his judgment. Instead, the pain of this discovery would fuel his determination. Giovanni meticulously mapped out his next steps, ensuring his response would not only expose Alizia's deceit, but also dismantle the facade she had so carefully constructed. His opportunity arrived when he overheard Alizia making plans over the phone to meet Matteo at a secluded villa near Lake Como. Her voice, light and carefree, carried a stark contrast to the strained and distant woman he had been living with for months, a painful reminder of everything she had stolen from him. That same night, Giovanni made a call to an old friend in the police force, explaining the need for discretion and impact. His plan was as calculated as any courtroom strategy. Alizia would be caught red-handed, and there would be no denying her betrayal. As Alizia and Matteo embraced in the dim light of the villa, police officers descended on the property, arresting them both. Elysia's face twisted in shock and humiliation as she was escorted away in handcuffs, her elegant evening gown now a symbol of her disgrace. Giovanni observed from a distance, his expression unreadable. The first step toward reclaiming his life had been taken. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. Milan's elite social circles buzzed with gossip, and Elysia's name became synonymous with scandal. The very people who once admired her now whispered about her downfall. Their words were sharper than any blade, tearing at the reputation she had so carefully cultivated. Giovanni wasted no time and filed for divorce, making sure every sordid detail was laid bare in the proceedings. He wasn't seeking revenge. This was about justice, about restoring balance in a life shattered by Elysia's lies. Her once unblemished reputation lay in tatters. Matto, unwilling to endure the damage to his own status, abandoned Elysia without hesitation. The man who had once seemed so passionate and full of excitement was nowhere to be found when faced with the brutal reality of public disgrace. Left alone and forsaken, Elysia's world began to crumble. She lost her job at the gallery, as the board was unwilling to be associated with someone so publicly tarnished. Friends who had once been close now distanced themselves, their loyalty as fragile as the image she had built. Her luxurious home, once a sanctuary, had become a prison, each corner a reminder of her failures. Meanwhile, Giovanni remained focused, throwing himself into his work with unwavering determination. To the outside world, he appeared unscathed, but inside, the scars of betrayal lingered. Late at night, he would sit in his study, staring at the photographs that had shattered his life, questioning how the woman he had loved could have done this to him. For Elysia, the isolation became unbearable. The weight of her choices pressed down on her, each day more suffocating than the last. Regret shadowed her every step, a constant reminder of the life she had destroyed. As weeks turned into months, Elysia's mental state began to deteriorate. One evening, unable to endure the pain any longer, she made a grim decision. In the silence of her once grand home, Elysia wrote a final letter to Giovanni. It was a mixture of apology and explanation, a desperate plea for understanding that would come far too late. Giovanni received the letter days later, delivered by a courier Elysia had arranged before her passing. He opened it with hesitation, the weight of its contents heavy in his hands. Her words were filled with sorrow as she recounted the loneliness she had felt during their marriage, the longing for excitement that had led her to Matto. She begged for forgiveness, though she knew she didn't deserve it. But as Giovanni read her confessions, he felt no comfort. Her words felt hollow, a too-late attempt to undo the irreversible damage she had caused. Her betrayal had been deliberate. Her choices were calculated, and no amount of regret could erase the scars she had left behind. Still, a small pang of sorrow lingered within him. Elysia had been a part of his life for so long, and her death marked an abrupt end to a chapter he had once thought would last forever. He folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, unwilling to let it occupy his thoughts any longer. Standing by the window of his penthouse, Giovanni gazed out at the city that had witnessed both his triumphs and heartbreaks. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of peace. The betrayal, the anger, the sorrow, it had all passed, leaving him with a clarity he hadn't known he needed. Il tempo rivela la verità, he murmured, his father's words echoing in his mind. Time reveals the truth. And it had. Giovanni turned away from the window, ready to face the future with renewed strength. The scars Elysia had left would remain, but they no longer defined him. He was a survivor, a man who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger. With every step he took, he moved closer to a life free from lies, prepared to embrace whatever came next with the unwavering confidence of the alpha he had always been. If you were moved by this tale of resilience and redemption, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Lost Love Mississippi. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories like this one. If you have a story of your own, feel free to share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the soul and remind us of the strength within every heart.